Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
There was a picture of this Ilhan Omar, and I swear to God, she's sitting there with Rashida Tlaib, and they look like they want to kill Trump. And I know I'm not trying to be the ugly American. I think we are a heterogeneous society, my friends. But when you see a woman wearing, in essence, a veil, who says, "I'm not from around these parts," screaming in the well of the house at our president, you wonder, how is this possible? What is going on here? In any other country, they'd say, "Shut up." But no, we're different. And we are just, and the best part about it is that you don't know how you look. And that's what I want to talk to you about. Let's talk about the State of the Union. You know what's probably some of the most boring talk you'll ever hear? People analyzing the State of the Union. Going through various iterations. Who said what? What did he say about this? What was the moment? What are his plans? The plans. You've known his plans since day one. He talks about his plans all day, every day. There's no doubt about what his plans are. So what did it accomplish? What was the point? He gave, the only thing I wish he would have done is, if you're going to give the Medal of Honor, this is a Congressional Medal of Honor approved by Congress, do it in the White House where the president gives the medal. Maybe this was a follow-up, maybe it was done more formally, but I want to see the president give this. Do you see what I'm saying? I want to see the president give the Medal of Honor. Because remember, you never win the Medal of Honor, you receive it. Now let's talk about the State of the Union. Is the State of the Union mandated by law? Is it required? Why do we do it? What's the purpose? Remember in the old days, the president had, a copy of his notes or a copy of the speech, and he would walk in and hand it to the various parties. Remember when Nancy Pelosi tore the copy up? And there was a question, did she break the law because the copy was not just hers, but it was official? But in any event, the State of the Union address is rooted in Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution. But let me talk again about the State of the Union. I think there's a connection there, priapism and the State of the Union. So Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution requires the president to, you ready for this? This is all it says, to, quote, from time to time, give to the Congress information of the State of the Union. That's it. That's it. It doesn't mandate a speech or a date or even an in-person appearance. It just requires a report. That's it. George Washington delivered the very first State of the Union in person on January the 8th. Imagine him going to State of the Union. It just started. What is he saying? Well, so far, so good. It looks pretty good. You haven't done anything. We're, 4 years old in 1790 here in New York. John Adams followed the same model. And then Thomas Jefferson, old TJ, broke from the tradition. In 1801, believing that a formal speech resembled kind of a royal address. So he instead sent a written message to Congress. And for more than a century, presidents followed Jefferson's written approach. So that was it. You don't even have to do this. He could send in a piece of paper. Everything's going great. Everything's groovy, beautiful, terrific. Everything's you got it? Terrific. That's all it takes. But then in 1913, things changed. Woodrow Wilson, who was either one of the greatest presidents or reviled as one of the worst racists, revived the in-person address, arguing that direct engagement with Congress strengthened leadership. From that point forward, from 1913 on, the speech gradually evolved into a major national event. Calvin Coolidge's 1923 address was the first broadcast on radio. Harry Truman's 1947 message was the first televised. How many people do you think had TVs in 1947? How many? 12? You know who changed that? Milton Berle. But I digress. Lyndon Johnson shifted the timing to prime time in 1965 to reach larger audiences. Memorable audiences include Franklin Roosevelt's 1941 Four Freedoms. Four Freedoms. This is a speech delivered as World War II was looming. And George W. Bush's 2002 address after September the 11th, where he declared an axis of evil. Though never really explaining why these people were the axis of evil. He just said it. In 1982, Ronald Reagan did something that forever changed the State of the Union. Ronald Reagan was a genius. Ronald Reagan changed everything. And I told this story one time. And I told this story on TV, and you know who saw it? You know who heard me say it? He loved it. One time I was at a wedding. When I did this kind of editorial thing, I looked, and there was a guy who was like squatting down. I looked, it was Brian Williams from NBC, and he said, I remember that. It was January the 13th in 1982, and many people don't even remember this. There was a fellow named Lenny Skutnik. Does that name come to mind? Lenny Skutnik. Oh, this was brilliant. This was so good. You see, there was a tragedy called Air Florida Flight 90, and it crashed into the 14th Street Bridge in Washington. Don't some people say that? Washington, D.C. And they hit the bridge before plunging into the icy Potomac River. 78 people died. It was chaos, freneticism, pandemonium. It was horrible. It followed as rescue helicopters hovered overhead and survivors struggling in freezing water. Can you imagine jumping into a freezing water? You would never see your C.O. Jones for the rest of your life. They'll be forever, they would disappear because you would jump into this ice bath. Well, at that time, there was something very, very important. Very, very, very critical. Lenny Skutnik came along. Lenny Skutnik did something which most people still don't recognize. Because he was standing there along the riverbank when he saw there was a flight attendant named Priscilla Tirado drifting away from a rescue line. And if you go back and look, she had a look of frozen terror. Everybody stood around doing nothing except for Lenny Skutnik. And what Lenny Skutnik did forever changed everything. So Lenny, remember Lenny Skutnik? Remember this one? This woman, Priscilla rather, there was this nurse. She was floundering about, and they're trying to drop a rope, and she's like saying, "I'm frozen. What's the matter with you? What am I going to do?" Lenny says, "The hell with this." He dives in, And he dove into the freezing water. He swam through the broken ice, reached Toronto, and pulled her safely to shore. It was an instinctive act, not planned, not choreographed, not political. So he wasn't great. So Ronald Reagan was doing the State of the Union. Ronald Reagan was, Ronald had some problems he had to deal with. He had to deal with a lot of stuff. So 2 weeks later, President Ronald Reagan decides he invited Skutnik to attend the 1982 State of the Union address. And during that speech, Reagan paused to recognize him in the gallery. This is when it changed. The chamber erupted in applause. The moment began a national tradition. So all of a sudden he says, and people are saying, well, answer the question, Mr. President. He goes, well, first, and before I continue, I'd like to recognize the notion of bravery and intrepidity. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Lenny Skutnik. And he was sitting next to Nancy in the gallery. And he goes, Lenny Skutnik. And they went crazy. And Ronald Reagan says, thank you, good night. And they say, what? Where are you going? What the hell?
Rural Americans deserve access to the best our nation has to offer, especially when it comes to health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families' health. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.